In the direction of Pokrovsk, the front line once again witnessed the futility of Russian forces' frontal assault ambitions, which attempted to exploit the speed of light vehicles to penetrate Ukrainian defenses. This time, their chosen tactic was a motorcycle assault, a strategy they had used in other sectors, but which almost always resulted in heavy losses when faced with the combination of small arms and the tactical superiority of Ukrainian drones. Features from the battlefield showed a group of Russian soldiers attempting to break into a residential area on motorcycles. Their goal was clear: to exploit their high mobility to quickly infiltrate Ukrainian defenses. Their chosen route was open, dusty terrain with little cover, a dangerous gamble that relied on speed as a shield. However, before they could reach a safe point, the sound of Ukrainian small arms fire began to rain down on their path. Dust and dirt flew around the speeding motorcycles, indicating that the path had been locked by Ukrainian gunners who had anticipated such a maneuver. One of the motorcycles was seen swerving as its rider struggled to maintain control. Within seconds, their progress was halted, and the momentum of the surprise attack was lost. The Russian soldiers, hoping to penetrate the defenses with a surprise burst of speed, were instead caught between machine gun fire and the positions of reconnaissance drones, which were constantly monitoring their every move from the air. Failure to quickly reach cover left them in their most vulnerable position, exposed, visible, and threatened from multiple directions. And that's when the second element of Ukraine's defensive strategy came into play. As the Russian troops attempted to flee, an FPV drone was launched, its movements precise, fast, and leaving no room for reaction. From the drone's camera perspective, it could be seen as it locked onto the target, diving sharply toward the motorcycle as it continued to advance. In a split second, a loud explosion struck the enemy vehicle, flames and smoke filling the area, marking the tragic end of the infiltration attempt. The explosion not only destroyed the motorcycle, but also eliminated all hope of the Russian troops continuing the attack. In this attack, many enemy troops lay on the ground, and the remains of burned vehicles, evidence of the lethal combination of Ukrainian defenses, small arms fire to slow them down, and FPV drones to finish them off. The video depicts the reality on the front lines, that motorcycles, supposed symbols of mobility, are turned into death traps, while Ukrainian drones once again prove themselves judges in the air. In the direction of Pokrovsk, the Russian motorized attack not only failed miserably, but also exposed a fundamental flaw in their strategy, ignoring the combined power of Ukrainian infantry fire and drone superiority. At the same time, Ukrainian forces are advancing into the Kursk region, turning what was once a defensive stand into a renewed cross-border push. These gains now open the path to outflank and encircle Russian positions from the north to crush the already overstretched enemy lines and reshape the dynamics of the entire front. A key factor behind this success has been the relentless Ukrainian airstrike campaign against Russian reinforcements and command centers across both Sumy and Kursk, and this has created openings for Ukrainian ground units to press forward. The Ukrainian Black Swan Battalion recently released footage northeast of Kindrativka showing Russian aircraft attempting to bomb new Ukrainian positions, a sign of how far north the battle has shifted. Despite Russian air activity, Ukrainian advances in this area underscore the collapse of Russia's ability to maintain pressure in Sumy, with Ukrainian forces now fighting beyond the settlements that were once planned to serve as a foothold for Russia's push south. Complementing airstrikes, Ukraine's drone campaign is inflicting devastating damage on Russian positions at the tactical level. Heavy drone platforms like the Vampire hexacopter are proving decisive, flying long-range night missions with payloads up to 20 kilograms. These drones are not just dropping improvised explosives, but carrying devastating ordnance, including anti-tank mines and a series of mortar rounds, which complicate Russian attempts to maneuver. Most notably, Ukrainian engineers working with frontline units have introduced a new drone-dropped munition dubbed the Black Hole Bomb. Developed by the Ukrainian Black Swan unit, the weapon has 2 confirmed variants. The thermobaric version unleashes a high-temperature blast wave that sucks in surrounding air, annihilating fortifications and suffocating troops caught inside trenches or buildings. The fragmentation variant detonates overhead, scattering lethal shrapnel across wide areas, ideal for clearing entrenched infantry or enemy units on the move. Combat footage shows these black hole munitions creating huge craters and collapsing Russian firing points, their effect comparable to that of artillery shells, but instead delivered with surgical precision from the sky. This innovation allows Ukrainian units to dismantle Russian defenses without waiting for conventional artillery or risking exposure of expensive fighter jets to Russian air defense systems. With Russian forces concentrated in Sumy and stretched thin after weeks of costly attacks and devastating airstrikes, Ukrainian commanders have again opted for tactical maneuvers rather than frontal attrition. Instead of smashing head-on into Russia's lines, they are methodically cutting off isolated groups, collapsing salients piece by piece, and pushing back into Kursk in the process. This strategy takes advantage of the area where settlements are small, scattered, and dispersed, making it easier to bypass and encircle Russian detachments rather than fight through each one in sequence. Ukrainian advances north of Kindrativka and into rural Kursk show this logic in action, turning the international border into little more than a reference line. In practice, the fighting forms a unified battle space where Ukraine's forces cross back and forth, exploiting Russian vulnerabilities while ignoring state boundaries that no longer reflect realities on the ground. Overall, the result is a steadily deteriorating situation for the Russian command, and what began as an attempt to push into Sumy has now backfired, with Ukraine not only halting the incursion but clawing back ground across the frontier. Russian infantry, deprived of supplies and hammered by Ukrainian air and drone strikes, cannot establish a coherent defense.